Volkswagen is really pushing ahead with its EV offensive, and as well as the ID3, the ID4 and the ID5, we've now got this, the new ID Buzz. Now it's a fully electric bus that aims to take on the inspiration of the original and famous Volkswagen bus, but bring it firmly up to date. So why should you be looking at this car and what's it got to offer? Well, we're going to get inside and find out. But before we dive in, please remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified every time we upload a new review. The ID Buzz has got some really eye-catching looks. It's got that split-tone colour effect that we would have seen on the original Volkswagen bus, but up front it's got those IQ lights that we've seen on the ID3 and the ID4, as well as some really prominent Volkswagen badges. All in, it's tied together really nicely and actually looks a lot like the concept car that came out originally. This is a car that definitely turns heads. Much of the ID Buzz's interior will be familiar to people who have driven the ID3 or the ID4 or some of the latest ID cars. So the screen in the middle and the screen ahead of you are both much the same as you'll find on the ID3. You've also got these steering wheel buttons, which, as before, I find a little bit fiddly and not that useful because they're just not all that sensitive to your actions. Elsewhere, you can see this has got a real focus on practicality, so we've got a nice big bin here, a second one here for your phone, some nice big door bins too, and a useful cup holder area, which is nice to have a warm coffee on a cold day like we're on today. This central section can also be removed entirely to free up some space, though I'm guessing that's more for if you're using it for a longer item to run down the middle. Otherwise, I'm not entirely sure why you'd take that out. Overall, feels really nicely put together, and definitely that practicality side is coming to the fore here. Access to the cabin is really easy thanks to those sliding doors, though interestingly they aren't powered. So you may have to hold on to them if there's a heavy breeze. You can quite easily push sliding doors like that, so you have to be a little bit careful. However, once you're in, you've got loads of space. Because this is an electric car and because it's a bespoke platform for Volkswagen's EVs, you've got a nice flat floor, which is something you don't get in a lot of vans. And you've got plenty of knee room here. You've got some folding tray tables too. And headroom is excellent, so even taller kids are going to be absolutely fine back here. The only thing we would say, this light coloured material for the seats is going to show up a lot of muck and dirt. So if you are going to be using it a lot for family duties or for putting the dogs back here, we'd probably go for a darker colour. There's also a handy little phone pocket that is just up there, which you can put your device in, and then you're not going to lose it. There are also chargers. They're not located in the middle because obviously that central column area comes out. There are USB-C chargers just inside the door bins here, which you could argue is a little bit of a faff because you'd have to plug it in there to put it up here, but we reckon you'd probably just leave your phone inside anyway. That's quite useful to have though. Of course, if you're looking at a van like this, practicality is what you're going to want, and fortunately the ID Buzz does really well in that respect. Now obviously, like any van, you're going to have to watch out for this large tailgate when you're parking up against a wall. You're going to have to give yourself space or find a different area to park. But once you're in, you've got a nice big load area, and as for a bit of context, large duffel bag, loads of room, so you're going to get some really big items in there. It's also split level too, so you can put some other bits and pieces under there. And in this one, you've got a handy area for your charging cables and a cargo net too. I also like the fact that you've got the controls for the folding rear seats back there, and some nice little ID Buzz motifs on the side, which just help jazz up the look of the interior here. Overall, really practical, really useful area. The ID Buzz is underpinned by the same platform that you'll find underneath the ID3, the ID4, the ID5. It's Volkswagen's MEB platform, and it's modular, so that means that it can be adapted to suit different sized vehicles. In this instance, quite a large bus. As with the ID3, you've got a 150 kilowatt motor at the rear, and that powers the rear wheels, and in this car you get about 0 to 60 in 10.1 seconds, just under 10 seconds perhaps, which feels just about right for this size and shape of vehicle. But performance aside, what is this actually like to drive around? Well, it's very similar to the ID3 in fact. It's a very relaxed, very hushed, very fuss-free driving experience that you get from it. And it's all tied into quite a familiar shape because you're sat up high and it's quite a boxy stance, just like it would be in a normal van or bus. You've got really good visibility thanks to plenty of glass all surrounding you, and you get quite a nice commanding view of the road ahead, which gives you a little bit more confidence, definitely. How does it feel in comparison to a normal van? Well, most noticeable of all is that lack of sound, lack of engine noise, which you get with any EV of course, but because it's in this van shape, it feels even more impressive. The performance is good, and like you find in so many electric cars, the power away from the line is instantaneous because of the way the electric motors deliver their torque. and that makes it feel quite zippy. 10.1 seconds is the claim figure on paper, but actually feels a bit quicker than that in real life. When it comes to range, Volkswagen claims about 258 miles from a full charge. It's a 77 kilowatt hour battery. During wintertime, it'll probably go down a bit. I've experienced with quite a number of electric cars that during the winter, when the weather starts dipping as it does in the UK, you tend to lose about 20 or 30 miles. The steering is quite light and reasonably accurate, and because the ID Buzz is so boxy, it's not a hard car to place. It's actually really easy to park, really easy to position. I quite like driving it around because you don't really have to think about driving it around too much. It's not physically too long either. You don't take too much time to get acclimatized to it, and actually if you're going to be using this as your day-to-day van, I think it's going to fit in really nicely. The fact that there's so much glass all around you just makes it feel a little bit more relaxing too. I'm driving on some pretty tight lanes, and as anyone who's driven a van or a bus before down tight country lanes in the UK, it can feel a little bit, well, claustrophobic at times, but in here it feels quite normal, quite pleasant. The only thing you do have to get used to is the stalks behind the wheel. They're slightly different to normal. There's no gear selector in the middle, of course. It's done up here on the side, almost like an old school American column shifter. And on the left-hand side, you've got your indicators and your windscreen wiper control. So you do have to just get rejigged with that ever so slightly. I really like the Volkswagen ID Buzz. It's got a lot of character, and that's something that's been lacking from quite a few EVs that we've tested recently. But it's backed up by a really good range, really nice interior, and a practical boot too. It's just the way this car looks though that really draws you towards it, and I think that's something that's going to really attract quite a lot of buyers towards this electric bus. Overall, it feels like a really exciting and interesting proposition. But if you aren't ready to make the jump to a full EV bus just yet, remember there are loads of used petrol and diesel examples currently on Motors.co.uk. If you've enjoyed this video, please remember to give us a like below and leave us a comment to let us know what you think of the ID Buzz. And since you're here, please remember to subscribe to the Motors.co.uk YouTube channel and hit that bell icon so you're notified every time we upload a new video.